Call to order the Planning Commission meeting, regular meeting, May 1st. Roll call, please, Luke.
Pearson.
Here.
Here. Campbell. Present.
Here.
Mayada. Here. Hagan.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
And then for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Those who've read the agenda, any questions or a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? See none. Agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes. Anyone have any comments or questions on the minutes? If there are none, I would ask for a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Minutes are approved. Open forum. Now is a moment for anybody to come forward to speak on a part that's, or a subject that's not on the agenda. And again, if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward to speak to any topic that's not on the agenda. See none, move on to the old business, which is none. New business, a public hearing for Oak Liquor, 1803 Geneva, conditional use permit for an electronic dynamics business sign. Luke, do you have your presentation, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I'll have the image on the screen in just a moment. So the location of the site is 1803 Geneva Avenue. So it's at the intersection of Stillwater Boulevard and Century Avenue, which is also known as Geneva Avenue and Highway 120. So the zoning of the site is C2, that's community commercial, where electronic dynamic business signs are allowed through the conditional use permit process. And the applicant is seeking to add an additional electronic dynamic sign component to their existing monument sign. There is currently a 48 square foot monument sign on site, and that's per sign side. The proposed electronic dynamic sign component would be 32 square feet in size, and that's per side. So that would bring the total sign area of this freestanding sign to 80 square feet per side. The existing sign, as you can see, it does face Geneva Avenue and also Stillwater Boulevard. So I do want to note that there are some nearby residential properties, and this sign would be approximately 170 feet to the nearest home to the south there, and then it is also approximately 220 feet to the home to the east. And because of the proximity of the sign to residential property, the sign is subject to special standards. So here's a look at the existing and proposed. The, again, existing sign there on the left-hand side is 48 square feet per side, and then the right shows the addition, which is on top of the static sign that's currently there right now. And then you can see the underground signposts, which are shown on the proposed sign. So just another look at the overall square footage for the sign, 80 square feet per side. Conditional use permits, they are subject to certain review criteria that's found in the city's zoning ordinance. And here's just a quick summary of first, the general review criteria that we must use when evaluating such a request. So it has to be in compliance with the city's comp plan, it has to be compatible with the zoning district, it cannot generate nuisance effects, it cannot create traffic congestion or parking issues, it must be adequately served by public services, and it cannot incur excessive costs for public services or infrastructure, and it must have minimal to no effects on the environment or natural features. And then for electronic dynamic business signs, there are a number of special criteria that the request has to meet, and it's been a while since the city has reviewed an electronic sign. It's been at least 3 years, maybe 4 or 5 years, from what I could tell in the history in our files. So just as a refresher, a conditional use permit is required. The sign must be a freestanding sign, or it can be a bulletin or building identification sign. The sign footprint itself cannot exceed 40 square feet per side. It must be rectangular in shape and contain the message within it. The minimum display duration is 30 seconds, or in other words, that's the dwell time for an image. Or in other words, you can't have flashing images every 6, 7 seconds or have animation. It has to be a still image for 30 seconds at a time. It cannot resemble an official traffic sign or signal, and it cannot exceed 4,500 nits, and that's a brightness metric that we use. And specifically between civil sunrise and sunset, and that's a very technical term. That's when the sun center is 6 degrees below the horizon. It cannot exceed 500 nits between sunset and sunrise. And additionally, because this sign is near or adjacent to residential property, it's actually subject to a higher standard. So between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., it must be shut off, or the property owner can program it to be a maximum of 250 nits from sunset to sunrise. The sign must have an auto shutoff function if the display deteriorates by 10% or more, just to maintain a consistent quality image there. The lamp wattage and luminance level in nits must be provided, which the applicant did in their application. And then the sign cannot be allowed as a temporary sign. And in this case, it's going to be fixed properly, installed into the ground, so that condition is met. So just in summary here, staff finds that the conditional use permit criteria of the ordinance, both the general and the specific, have been met for this request, and staff recommends approval subject to the following 6 conditions that are found in the packet in the resolution. So the first one is that the sign shall have a minimum display duration of 30 seconds. Number 2, the sign shall display static messages only. Number 3, the sign shall not exceed 4,500 nits between the hours of civil sunrise and civil sunset. Number 4, the sign shall not exceed 250 nits from civil sunset to civil sunrise. Number 5, the sign shall have a fully functional off switch that auto shuts the sign when the display deteriorates by 10% or more. And finally, number 6, the applicant shall obtain 1, a sign permit, and 2, an electric permit for the use. As a reminder, this is a public hearing. We have a representative from the sign company here if you have specific questions. Otherwise, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Anyone have any questions for Luke on the report? No. Seeing none, offer a moment for the applicant to come forward if he wishes.
The applicant couldn't make it. I'm with the sign company, but unless you don't have any questions, then we're good.
Okay, anyone have any questions for him? Okay, I open the public hearing. So if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward to make comment on this issue, please do. And as required, I'll ask a second time. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward to speak to this issue, please do. Otherwise, I'll close the public hearing. Bring it back. Any final comments from anybody here in the commission? Then I ask for a motion to recommend the approval of the conditional use permit for an electronic dynamic business sign at 1803 Geneva Avenue North.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. Motion passes.
Thank you.
The next one is public hearing on Willowbrooke 12th edition, parcel number ID, whatever the number is, planned unit development amendment, final plat, and site plan. Luke, I'll let you read the number.
Well, thank you, Chair. So the property here, that's parcel ID 08029-213-40017. So it's at the northeast quadrant of 40th Street and Interstate 694. There on the map, you can see it's the property is just under 10 acres. And this is the last developable site within the Willowbrooke neighborhood. And the purpose here is that the developer and builder are requesting to build 98 townhome units, and the developer states that these will be market rate, or in other words, they are not income restricted. And the builder also reports that the units would be sold to individual lots, or in other words, this is not a fully rental neighborhood. The zoning of the site is Willowbrooke PUD, or planned unit development, which designates the site for high-density residential, and townhouses are an allowed use there. The comp plan guides the site for mixed-use residential. And I'll show the image in just a moment, but there is just one access here, and it is off 40th Street, so at the intersection of 40th and Hayward Avenue. So here's a look at the proposed subdivision plat. So the developer is seeking to replat this site in order to create one outlot for private streets and infrastructure that will serve the development, and also 98 individual lots for the townhome units. The city engineer noted that because the development will utilize the adjacent parcel that's located to the northeast for surface water treatment, that area will have to be included with this plat. As such, the developer must revise their plat to make that adjustment. For easements, the developer must ensure that there are no encroachments into the drainage and utility easements, and there are just some minor adjustments that will need to be made because right here where my cursor is, and I believe over here on the east side as well, there's just a minor encroachment with some of the patios into the required drainage and utility easements. So Outlot A, again, that's for the private streets and infrastructure. That will be covered by, it must be covered by an easement that will allow the city to have access to the sanitary sewer and the water main. So also as part of the platting process and in accordance with the Willowbrooke Master PUD agreement that was executed back in 2020, I believe, the developer must satisfy park dedication requirements. So here's a look at the site plan. I would like, again, just to point out the single access there off 40th Street and Hayward Avenue. That Hayward Avenue currently serves the Rowers development directly to the south. The internal streets for this development will be owned and maintained by the developer or the builder. Given that the private streets will be narrower than the standard city streets, the fire department noted that on-street parking cannot be allowed so that large vehicles, particularly fire trucks, garbage trucks, so that they can make proper ingress and egress movements throughout the site. So as such, the developer must install signage that prohibits on-street parking within the property. The developer's plans show a trail that will run north-south here, where my cursor is, or on the east side of the site. That will connect to other trails within the neighborhood. This trail will be built by the city and also maintained by the city, but we do want to make sure that that trail actually gets shifted a little bit further east so that it is fully on city property. So that's just another adjustment that the developer will need to make on their plans. A lot of detail here. I can pause if you have any questions before I move on.
Anyone have any questions for Luke?
I do.
Yes.
Forgive me if you mentioned this, the streets, what's the width on those?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to look and
24 feet.
24.
Back of curb or back of curb to back of curb? Okay.
Okay. Any other questions from the commissioners?
I have a question, but I
Yes.
don't know if it really relates to this. So, I mean, just about noise, it's right next to the freeway. And I wonder, what do they do to prevent that noise from bothering the people there?
Yep. So the applicant has submitted a noise variance and a noise study. It was prepared by a professional engineer. And that request will actually be heard by the city council. It's outside the zoning chapter and subdivision regulations, so it goes directly to the city council. But the city council will hear that noise variance, and likely there will be some conditions about the types of materials, windows in particular, that would have to be installed in order to help meet the noise standards that are established by the state.
Thank you.
Yes.
A question. So I understand, the development will be market rate, right?
Yes.
And the developer is not seeking any financial assistance from the city.
Yes.
The city of Oakdale, and forgive me if I didn't do my homework. The city of Oakdale has incentive for developers to have a development that sort of not only market rate, but also sort of affordable housing. do they have any, does city have those rules into the zoning code or no? Oakdale?
No, Commissioner, so there's no specific rules about X number of units have to be, market rate or income restricted, if I'm getting to your question. So.
Are there any incentive that the city gives to developers? Any incentive that the city has for developers to be able to incorporate affordable housing into their development?
There are a number of programs, and historically speaking, it's been a while, but tax increment financing has been used on certain developments, conduit debt financing for others, most recently with the MWF senior development just by Hy-Vee. That was another tool. If that answers the question?
Yeah, so it will be up to the applicant to say, yes, I accept this or not, right? Is what's going on?
It's a request from the applicant and then ultimately a decision by the city council. So.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else? I'm going to withhold my question until the developer comes up, so, okay?
I have just a few more slides here, so. So here's a closer look at the site plan, and the Willowbrooke PUD contains very specific zoning standards for this site, and the developer is seeking deviations from a couple of those. The first one is the required density for the site, and then the second one is setback reductions. So the density for the site, the PUD requires that the high-density residential areas contain a density range of 35 to 55 dwelling units per acre, whereas this request amounts to about 10.3 dwelling units per acre. So therefore, the developer is seeking a formal PUD amendment to reduce that density due to the product type that they're being offered, which is driven by market demand. And staff finds that the reduced density is appropriate in order to accommodate the proposal, as it will expand some housing types within the area while also meeting the intent of the planned unit development. For setbacks, the property boundary is shown in red there on the screen. And the PUD has a special setback requirement from 694. It's 60 feet. And for the most part, the western portion of this development meets that 60-foot requirement with just a small portion there where there's the arrow. It's indicating that the setback would be 56 feet. So just a 4-foot deviation there. And then on the south side, or along 40th Street, the PUD requires a 35-foot setback. And due to a technicality, it's a jog in the property boundary and the jog is intended for a future connection for the, or to allow, to help enable a future bridge, pedestrian bridge over Interstate 694. That's the reason for the bump out there. But because of that bump out, the developer is showing a 30-foot setback for some of the townhomes there. From a safety perspective, the city engineer did not have any concerns with the proposed reduced setback off 40th Street, and staff also finds that the reduced setbacks are appropriate to accommodate the development. Other standards, including tree preservation, landscaping, and parking requirements have been met for this request. So let's take a look at some of the elevations for the townhomes here. The development is, again, located in that high-density residential district per the PUD, and that is subject to certain exterior design standards. So specifically, multifamily structures must consist of at least 70% Class 1 exterior building materials. The developer provided an updated materials breakdown, which was included in the packet, and it shows that the townhomes will consist of approximately 86% fiber cement or hardy board, if you're familiar with that type of product, 2% stone veneer, and then 11% is accounted for garage and entryways, and then 1% for trim, fascia, and soffits. For previous multifamily developments within Willowbrooke, and specifically I'm talking about the Rowers development, the townhomes just to the south, and then the Continental or the Springs of Willowbrooke, which is kind of in the southeast portion of the Willowbrooke neighborhood, fiber cement was allowed to be considered a Class 1 material for those two developments. And staff finds that the exterior building materials for this proposal meets the Willowbrooke PUD standards. Some more elevations to follow here, just a couple colored elevations. I apologize, you can't really see it there on the projector, but the television screen the color, the contrast much better. I would like to note that the developer must provide updated plans to show the location of any ground mechanical equipment and exterior trash collection areas, if any, and their methods of screening in accordance with the city's zoning regulations. And with that, just to conclude, staff finds that the developer's request for a PUD amendment, a final plat, and site plan are consistent with the comp plan and the city's ordinance as detailed in the staff report on file. And staff recommends approval of the request subject to the following conditions, which are found in the resolutions. So first resolution is page 43 in your packet, and that is the final plat for Willowbrooke 12th. Bear with me, there's 8 conditions here. So number 1 is execution of a development agreement. Number 2, satisfaction of park dedication requirements. Number 3, the developer must establish an easement over Outlot A that enables access to and maintenance of the sanitary sewer and water main. Number 4, the final plat must be revised to include the portion of Outlot A, Willowbrooke 5th edition, that will be utilized for surface water treatment of this development. And that's referring to that area to the northeast of this site that will help treat the stormwater and the runoff for this development. Number 5, the civil plans must be updated to show that that north-south trail will be shifted further east onto city-owned property. Number 6, civil plans must be updated to remove any encroachments located within the drainage and utility easements. Number 7, the final plat must be revised in accordance with the city attorney's plat opinion letter, and the developer must adhere to the city attorney's recording instructions. And number 8, permits and approvals must be obtained from outside agencies prior to the recording of the final plat. And then finally, the resolution on page 45, which is for the site plan of Willowbrooke 12. 9 conditions here. Number 1 is an approval of an amendment to the Willowbrooke PUD to reduce the density. Number 2, execution of a development agreement. Number 3, approval of the site civil construction plans by the city engineer. Number 4, approval of a noise variance by the city council. Number 5, installation of signage to prohibit on-street parking within the development. Number 7, Number 6, approval must be obtained from the fire department for the proposed hydrant locations and fire department connections. Number 7, the developer must provide details for ground mechanical equipment and external trash collection areas and their methods of screening. Number 8, the photometric plan must be revised to comply with the city's regulations. And number 9, outside agencies must grant approval for any applicable permits for this development. The developer and the builder, they are here in attendance if you have any questions. This is a public hearing, and I'd be happy to answer questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have one question for you. You did mention very briefly the tree preservation.
Yes.
What is the plan? Are there trees there now that to be preserved or replanted? What is the tree situation for this lot?
So there are a number of significant trees on the property, and back in the 2020 timeframe when the initial phase of Willowbrooke was reviewed and approved, there was a tree preservation and a tree removal plan that was approved back in the early stages there. So I believe virtually all the trees from the site will have to be removed in order to accommodate the development. But the developer might have a little bit more information on the trees as well. But in addition, there is a landscaping plan that was submitted as part of this. So there will be new trees planted as part of the development. And
that landscaping plan is not part of this packet, it's at some other time, or just to be presented to the city council, where does that go? The details of the specific landscaping plan, they were not included, but the staff did do a review of the request, and we verified that sufficient trees will be planted as part of the landscaping plan.
And, I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask if there's any other questions from anybody else. So go ahead.
Yeah, I want to know what the noise variance is.
Yep.
There's a condition, they want a noise variance. Could you explain that to me?
Yep, so the noise variance is, it really is an acknowledgement from the developer, the builder, that there are state standards that for receiving noise, because the site is so close to the interstate, that the only way to really meet those requirements is to install special windows or have certain building materials be a part of the development in order to make, or in order to meet the state standards. And then the developer is also seeking that variance from the city council just as a means to receive approval and build the development. I don't know if that quite answered your question.
So the standards are being lowered?
No, not necessarily being lowered, but they're being granted an exception. And the way that the developer can meet those standards is by incorporating special building materials.
Well, I would think that there's like an air quality issue as well, you know, being right next to the freeway. I mean, I guess your buyers will hopefully consider all those things.
And I think, if I may, like, I understand you. Unfortunately, I don't think those really kind of fall into the purview of what we get to take into consideration. So city council, because as Luke had mentioned, the zone or the noise ordinance falls outside of zoning code, that has to be taken up by city council. So if it'll be up to the city council, you know, they'll take what we hear and they may decide, no, we're not going to approve the variance on the noise. And then that's up to them to go back and figure out, how do we meet that?
Thanks.
I have a question. Will the property have, I don't know if this is the correct terminology, but its own like leasing office? I know some townhome places have a staged like section of the townhome where someone sits, introduces new residents. Is that going to be on the property?
So I would defer to the builder on that question.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening, Steve Trosky with Lennar. These are for sale, so there would be a model home that prospective buyers could go and look at, but they're not for rent, so we wouldn't have a leasing office in that regard.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if leasing office was the correct term. The reason for the question would be the section 5, I guess, like if someone, I don't know, just drives up, like if there's no on-street parking, where would they park in that case? Just like pull into the townhome garage, I'm assuming, or?
We haven't gotten far enough in the project planning to identify which of the units would be a model home. But what we typically do is potential residents would park in a driveway, or there would be a temporary parking bay where residents can park, and then, you know, once the community is sold out, that would convert into grass or the last unit or something like that.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I think there's another sales office for kind of the single-family homes elsewhere in the development, and as I recall, there's like a lot next door that was paved, and it's a parking lot. You park there, you go in, and then I assume when everything's sold out, you'll, as you said, you convert it or build a home on it or something.
That's correct.
Yep.
Les, there is a mention in the packet, though, about a 13 or 18-person parking area for guests. So there is some accommodation for off-street parking in the guest area,
Okay.
which may be a significant walk from somebody's house. But
So that's my biggest concern is, you know, we can put as many signs up as we want. You host a birthday party, you have the baby shower, people are parking on the streets.
Yeah.
And especially because so much of this is concentrated on the east side of the site. There's a couple small pockets of 2 or 3, but these driveways are short, 22-ish feet, so you're only gonna get 2 cars in there. It's gonna be an issue,
yeah.
you know.
Any other questions?
Is there a glazing requirement for the, in the zoning code for Oakdale? What I mean by glazing is the percent of windows and door opening facing on a facade facing the street?
A zoning requirement for the amount of windows or number of windows?
Yeah.
Not in the zoning code, but I believe building code has very specific window requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before I ask the developer to come back up? if you would, please, because I got a couple of questions for you. First one is the one I've already asked, if you remember it.
I don't.
Trees, your plan.
Oh, sure.
Just a hint, because it's kind of outside of our scope a little bit, but we do have relationship with the tree board requirements and meeting city code, so I'm kind of curious.
Well, I'm Mark Carmick with Alliant Engineering. We've been working on this project since 2016, and it's been pretty exciting to see this whole thing go through. I worked on the first Springs Continental site also. Regarding your question, on the landscape plan, we are proposing to have 197 trees total on the site. And then, I guess, they're not exactly on the site, but to the north, there's a number of large oaks and existing trees in that area that won't be disturbed.
I was kind of wondering about along the frontage to 694 for sound barrier, et cetera.
Yeah, we have pretty much a solid, once they get more mature size, there'll be a solid vegetative buffer along there.
Okay, I guess that answers my question sufficiently. So the next question I've got is one I posed earlier to Luke. I understand that the fire department signed off on it, but one of the other ones that came to mind, and again, I doubt that it's within our purview perhaps, but I'm kind of interested. What are you gonna do for snow removal? Because the lots are tight together,
yeah.
and as a plow goes through, don't see much place for it to go.
No, and it's not a untypical townhome development, so it'll be put where it can be, and then if there's no place to put it, they'll have to put it in trucks and
And as the packet points out, it's your problem, not really ours, but.
Yeah. So, I do want to point out a couple of things that were in the staff report that were kind of new in this last week. The first one being the trail. I wasn't aware that the city, wanted that portion of the trail to be theirs and to be moved over. So we'll work with the city on that. There is some lower grade to the east, so we're gonna have to work through that. And then the other thing, I don't know if you have a plan that shows the pond. So there's a pond northeast of the site on an existing, so this parcel is an outlot, and all we're doing is basically replatting it for this development, and the boundaries are not changing. But then where has the red cursor there, that's a larger outlot that runs north, and that pond is probably 25% of that parcel. And initially, we thought we would give Lennar an easement for that. It's actually an infiltration basin. And then the city's asking for that to become part of this parcel. So we're gonna need to work through if that's actually gonna be part of the plat, give them an easement, subdivide that outlot so that the infiltration is its own outlot. So we'll work through that in the next week and update the plat before we get to council is the intent, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for them? Someone else?
Have you, again, the 24 back-to-back concerns me. Can you talk to us about why you needed to reduce or why you're reducing the street width?
It was a matter of working with the city on the layout. There was a target number of units that we wanted, and city staff essentially pushed us to get farther from the freeway. We initially wanted to be 30 feet, and they were pushing us through the city council workshop to get closer to 60. So that's what we ultimately did, and as part of that compromise was tightening the distance between the rear of the townhomes and then also those drive lanes.
And what is the distance behind some of these homes on average? It looks like buildings 1, 2, and 3 don't have much. 13, 14 have a little bit more.
Behind the units?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Well, between the freeway, and we'll have a privacy fence along 694, and like Luke was saying, it's somewhere between 57 and 60 feet on 13 and 14. 1 and 2, yeah, we're approximately 18 to 20 feet from the back of the unit, so the property line. But then it's kind of a prairie there that leads out to what is a MnDOT pond, about 500 feet or something to the north, so.
Anyone else have questions? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, so at this point, I will open the public hearing. This is the time for anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward to make comment on this subject to come forward. As required, I'll offer a second time. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward to make comment on this issue, please come forward. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back. Any final comments from anybody here?
Just a question for Luke, and forgive me, I'm trying to get the area. There's a smaller, kind of like single-family detached development right off of 15th and what I think is Granada. Yeah, kind of like Granada Road North. So you just go down and it's on your left-hand side.
Okay.
Very similar, it reminds me of, like short driveways, narrow streets, a few parking areas for guests. Do we have anywhere in the city that kind of resembles this, that we have seen any issues with or had any concerns with?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find a way for me to get over this hump of I don't want to put 100 homes here and it's an issue and then we can't do anything because there's absolutely zero kind of green space that we can expand into.
So just generally speaking, the fire chief has expressed some concerns with just townhomes, existing townhomes throughout Oakdale, and having similar issues. Just it can be very problematic with fire trucks maneuvering around those narrower streets, private streets. So just, yeah, generally we do have that issue kind of all over the place. Enforcement is going to be key here in terms of making sure that folks do not park on the street so that the large vehicles can make proper maneuvers. And there might be also just an educational component from, the builder, the developer, to their buyers that, that's the expectation. Keep these roads clear so that we can keep this neighborhood safe.
They're responsible for putting up the signs. Who's responsible for enforcement? The management or the city on the parking?
Or police ticketing, I'm assuming.
Yep. So I don't know enough about the traffic violations, but my understanding is that police, if it's an official traffic type sign, then the police, I believe, has the ability to enforce.
Just because they were private roads, and I thought there might be a differentiation between those and public roads.
Just because they're private and public, I don't know that necessarily makes a difference. If it's more so an official traffic type signal or sign, I believe the police department has the ability to enforce.
Any other comments?
I do.
Go for it.
Just, it's more of a comment. When this packet first came out, I had a couple issues with the density, the materials, the setbacks. It helped me go through was the workshop that was held in February by the city council and reading the minutes of that and how it got to where it got to here today and why. So this is more of a point of reference of maybe the commissioners. Going back and reading some history of this, and you guys said you were looking at this since 2000 whatever year, there's a lot of verbiage and talking that happens. So that helped me get to today that I didn't really have a lot of problems with this. So, but reading those minutes made a big difference, going back to that workshop, so.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Luke, any final comments from you?
Nope.
Okay, we have three motions to consider. First one is a motion to recommend approval of an amendment to the Willowbrooke Planned Unit Development.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain? Motion to recommend approval of the final plat for the Willowbrooke 12th edition.
Make a motion.
Second.
Wait, what was the first one? Wasn't that the final plat?
It was the approval of the amendment to the Willowbrooke Planned Unit Development, PUD.
My apologies.
Okay.
Yeah. Page 42 was the first one, right?
And motion to recommend approval of the final plat, that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Thank you. Motion to recommend approval of the site plan for Willowbrooke 12th edition.
Make a motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Yeah, just for the record, Janet abstained on all three. I believe everybody else voted yes, so.
I was a nay on that last
You
one.
were a nay on the last one? Yes. Okay. It wasn't clear from my hearing, so I
We
figured.
both said it at the same time, so that's okay.
Okay. Motion's passed. We're on to other staff liaison report.
Thank you, Chair. So the June 5th Planning Commission meeting, that will be an important one with the public hearing for the zoning and subdivision code update that we've been working on since March of 2024. So it's, some sections of that code is under legal review at this time. But yes, we will be bringing forward the zoning code updates here at the June meeting. And the goal is to send out the draft code sections a couple weeks before the planning commission meeting, so you have some time to digest 200 some pages or dense code, so.
Got a question.
Yes.
Will, you talked about the dynamic sign tonight.
Yes.
And how old that is and hasn't been reviewed. Is that part of one of them that's going to
Yes.
be reviewed?
Yes.
Good.
The sign code in particular is quite outdated. There's been some recent Supreme Court rulings that have changed things, and there will be some updates.
Yeah, if you haven't read the sign code, it's pretty restrictive, and it's been an issue for a couple of decades.
Good.
Question on that report, is there going to be some kind of a side-by-side comparison, new versus old, so for what's changed? Or is it just, this is replacement?
Just because it's so dense, we're talking hundreds of pages, it just wouldn't be a good use of our time. The project team feels that you would do a side-by-side comparison, but instead what we plan to do is have a summary page, or a summary document rather, might be 6, 7, 8 pages or so, just highlighting the substantive changes that we're proposing.
Okay. Any questions from anybody for Luke on that? Moving on to commissioner updates. Anybody have any statements they wish to make? Okay, and council liaison update. Ms. Willowbrooke.
Good evening. I really don't have anything to share other than we're starting to work on the budget, which is not fun.
That
How
goes on for
exciting.
several months, as I recall.
Months and months and months. Yep. But I'm happy to answer any questions related to anything, if you have any. No? Thank you guys for re-upping, and I'm sorry to see you go. But thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, then.
Okay.
One other note I did have, actually. I noticed, I was driving by over by TLC, and they have started construction on, I
Coco's.
forget, what was it?
Coco's Rescue.
Oh, is that what's going in? Yep. So,
Yeah, they're moving the dirt. Companion animal? I mixed it up. Different rescue.
couch tonight.
At this point, I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Any opposed? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? See none, we stand adjourned. Thank you and good night.